The Perth Convention and Exhibition Centre is sinking. Let's have a look. Hello everyone, I'm Florian Heise and welcome to another episode of Heise Says. I thought today we'd look at an article about the Perth Convention and Exhibition Centre that is sinking. And don't worry, I've got my stein of coffee here keeping me company and getting me through the day. But you can see in this image, before we get into the article, you can see in the image in the car park, these little speed bumps that are conveniently created by the whole building sinking down. This reminds me of the first ever project I worked on as an architecture student. I was working for Blyvold & Yield, an architectural firm in Brisbane, and they were doing a little extension out of Brisbane Airport. And I remember going out to the airport and seeing in the basement level of the airport, there was this sinking around all the columns. The columns around it, that was all raised up, and that was the original ground level, and it had sunk down because it was built on reclaimed land. And it was notorious for stuff sinking down and settling over the years, and I couldn't believe it. So I've experienced this firsthand. I've seen it myself. So let's have a read. So the Perth Convention and Exhibition Centre is sinking, and it will cost more than $10 million to repair. You know what it is? It's all the potatoes that they're storing there. The government's been storing in Perth for years. That's it, because people can't sell them. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, have a look at the video I released this morning about the Western Australian Potato Board. So Perth's flagship convention centre is at the heart of the CDB, is slowly sinking into the Swan River with undulating speed bumps that have developed in a car park at the base of the structure, creating hazards for cars and people. So I'll zoom in a bit here so we can see it. So there you go. The Perth Convention and Entertainment Centre. So it's an exhibition or entertainment, probably the same thing, which was built on land reclaimed from the river, of course, opened in 2004 and attracts between 800 to 900,000 visitors a year. The $310 million structure was built on state land by Multiplex Consortium, which included Multiplex Constructions, Accor Asia Pacific Proprietary Limited. It is privately owned and operated under a 35-year lease from the state government, and the car park is operated by local authority, the City of Perth. So we can see it here. The city's head of infrastructure and operations, Chris Kopek, said a permanent solution for the subsidence problem could take at least 3 years and cost more than $10 million to fix. Well, if you think $10 million sounds a lot, but the building cost $310 million. $310 million. So what? It's less than a third of 1% of the construction cost of the building. That's not that bad, really, when you compare it to the cost to rectify Mascot Towers. You know, I'd be shocked if Mascot Towers would be a $310 million building. So the bedrock is about 28 meters deep. It's about, on average, probably 25. Obviously, there's a significant amount of soil there, and how it reacts in different areas of the car park is different, Mr. Kopek told ABC Radio Perth. Did they let it settle long enough? That could be one of the things. I mean, look at this. This is just insane. Could you imagine going there for an event and having to drive over these bloody things? This is just nuts. You get air. You'd get air leaving the car park. Or is it just how I'm thinking about it? I used to have a little Smart for Two, one of the little two-seater cars, and I used to park at the convention centre here in Brisbane, and I would always put the roof down and just floor it whenever I was driving around in there. Security didn't like that, but I could have gotten air. Definitely. A little Smarty, yeah, he could have gotten air there. There's a permanent solution which involves piling to bedrock, much in the way the building is supported down to on bedrock, then relaying a car park over those piles to effectively means it's independent of the ground that it's subsiding on. So they're going to put floating slabs. Well, yeah, that makes sense. It seems like a good idea, but it's a lot easier to do when you build the building. So the sinkage affects around 30% of the car park and is in some places 40 centimeters deep. Mr. Kopek said there's been 10 reports to the city of damage to vehicles of people or people tripping over the bumps since January. Okay, so this, that's their way of dealing with it. This is an occupational health and safety requirement. See that gap there, that little crack? That's not compliant with the with the National Construction Code. That could be a hazard for someone in a stiletto, stepping in it, tripping, breaking their leg. This car park shouldn't be operating anymore. I don't think those signs are appropriate management. They're trying to install signs to manage this risk. There you go. So if someone injures themselves here, they would have legal recourse against the operators of the car park. I would wedge a bet. I'd bet a carton that they would. I'm shocked that they're still allowing people to operate in, or they're not rectifying these things right in the instant. Just getting rid of it. I probably can't. Because that's really dangerous. That is really dangerous. You'd have to... I'm not familiar with the health and safety legislation requirements in WA. Is it different to Queensland? I know over here, the designers would be stung. And they'd be exposed to the risk. Even as an architect, you have to be concerned with the tiles that you specify, with the slip ratings. One of the issues is you can specify a tile that has a solution put onto it with extra grout or extra granular, grit, essentially, to increase the slip resistance of it so people can walk on it safer. But the issue is it has to be cleaned properly, and if people don't clean it properly, it actually holds more dirt and then it gets slipperier than a less gritty one. And it's all to do with the slip ratings. And because of the litigious society we live in, if you don't, it's part of your duty of care as a designer, and it's part of the duty of care of the building owner and the people maintaining it to ensure that all of this comes together so Joe in the public isn't going to slip and break their hip or suffer an injury, which is completely reasonable. It's what you expect when you engage people, professionals. It's what you expect when you go to a building, and it's something that people should take seriously. So I'm really surprised that the city of Perth is allowing this to happen. And that's their solution there. So that's quite concerning. So Mr. Kopek, who was not involved with the original build, said ongoing short-term work was being done to address the issues while a long-term solution was decided. Okay, so they're working on it. It's not something you see very often, but as I've said, it's a complicated scenario beneath there, he said. We don't know what decisions were made back in the construction timeframe with regards to the method of construction. The City of Perth's 2019 to 2020 budget has $4 million allocated for subsistence rectification at the convention centre. A spokesman for the City of Perth said, as the car park was a state government appointed contract, it was not for the city to disclose any historical, contractual or legal recourse details. The final funding arrangements for the project are yet to be determined, the spokesman said. Builder Multiplex has been contacted for comment. Honestly, probably it's a car park in a CBD. Wouldn't one day of takings be enough to pay all the repair all the damage? Those of you living in Perth, let us know in the comments, how much is the parking at the convention centre? How much do you pay for parking in the city? I know if I ever head into into the city in Brisbane, it's insane how much the parking can get. You can sometimes get a bit cheaper. We went to university for an alumni event recently, and it was quite funny where Rachel and I, we ended up parking, in the car park, and we paid. And back in the day, no, we caught the train in. I forgot, my memory's getting rusty. But back in the day, I remember how I would always go up the back alley behind the Union, just sneak a dodgy car park. And, you couldn't get away with that now. They'd tow you, they'd put wheel clamps on you, they'd do Lord knows what to you. So guys, here we go. We've got subsistence on a building in Perth built on the river. I think there would, it'd be interesting to see the design decisions that were made initially. I'm more concerned with the trip hazards that they have all throughout the car park now. I'm more concerned with that. That could be a point of injury, and that can cause people, serious damage. You could break a hip on that. You could break your leg on that. I'm shocked that they're still allowing it to be occupied. Maybe the lawyers are lining up. Maybe they're lining up. Do you know anyone who's parked there, guys? Let me know in the comments if you know anyone who's been injured. Or is this just the one worst place here, and they probably shut down this car park? Hopefully. But there you go. That'll solve it. I mean, yeah. There you go. So it's the biggest convention space in the city. I mean, it looks like a reasonable convention space. Looks fine. So guys, there you go. We have it. That's Perth. The convention centre is sinking. Let me know what you think about it. What would your solutions be? I mean, it looks like they're going to put a floating slab on there, or suspended down to the piers, separate of the structure. Maybe they should have done that right at the beginning. Like, share and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Take care.